Okay, for those that have joined, good morning, good afternoon. I think we're going to wait just a few more minutes, give people a few more, give them a little bit more time to join. Let me just check something. Okay. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I haven't seen anyone join in the last minute or so, so I think that means it's going to be time. Good morning, everyone. Good morning and thank you for joining, and good afternoon and thank you for joining our webinar, Trade Data APIs, a simple way to support your international trade-oriented companies. For those of you who I haven't met, hello, and I think a few of you I have talked to previously before, so thank you again for joining. Today's webinar, as I mentioned in my email yesterday to many of you, we're going to try to keep it short, so we know you're all very busy. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be joined by our CEO here at Export Enterprises, Etienne Boucher, who's going to be welcoming and starting the welcome journey into our presentation today. Etienne, are you there?
Yes, hi Nina. Hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Can you can you give me the rights to share my face?
Oh.
Because I don't want to.
Let me check on that while.
Okay, give me just a few minutes to catch up on who is Export Enterprises. Company was built and started in the 90s, providing trade development services to banks, to companies who wanted to go international. Progressively moved into the digital arena, and now providing mainly platforms, web platforms, and now turning most of our platforms into APIs. So our platforms include trade portal. We've been deploying dozens of them throughout the world, resources for international trade and international trade oriented companies. And those trade portals now are also proposed in the form of APIs. That's what we're going to discuss today. We also built business communities that are, places where banks can list their clients, and instead of having just a list of clients, it becomes a community, either domestic or cross-border, based on the footprint of the client base of the bank. And then opportunities marketplace is a little bit the same, where the clients of the bank can post their requests for offers or their offers for products, and then create a marketplace based on that. We work for 30 or 40 plus banks throughout the world, from Asia, from the Middle East, from Europe and Africa, a little bit also in the Americas. And we tend to specialize on this clientele of banks, trying to provide them with all the beyond banking services that they may need. So today we're going to zoom, Nina, into something very specific, which is the trade content, the trade resources APIs. Of course, it's based on the analysis first on what international trade-oriented companies need for their business now, what kind of data, what kind of decision-making they are up to, and then what kind of data is available, or how we do, and what kind of data do we make available that we found on the market or that we built, and then how to easily plug those data into your existing websites using APIs, as probably the most convenient and the most effective way to display extra experiences, extra data in your own websites. The first thing I'm gonna try to dig into, Lina, is the volatility of trade at the moment. We're going through this pandemic. We're trying to we don't know if we are phasing out, or if it's phasing out, or if it's rebounding. But anyway, the trade in the meantime has been very, very resilient in 2020, and is probably going to bounce seriously in 2021 and probably behind. We see all the logic of growth still on, but on the other hand, we have also new trade barriers that appear in the recent years, but also new trade agreements. So there's a lot of transformation around there in the marketplace, in the international trade marketplace. And also we've had a lot of digital transformation over the last months, acceleration of many existing trends, and also the look for zero carbon objective in trade, which are all shaping a new industry and a new approach to international trade. I'm going to zoom into these slightly more here in the coming slides before we jump into the description of the content. But it's important to keep in mind what the international trade-oriented companies have in their plate at the moment. Nina, the next slide. Yeah. So here you have a breakdown of the bouncing of the trade in the different areas, with very strong growth in Asia, but also in most of the areas where there's a lot of catching up from 2020. But besides that, if you move to the next slide, there is a lot of there's a whole new map of growth that is coming out of this pandemic, which is just the result of the last 20 years of growth in the emerging countries. This is a projection made by Standard Chartered Bank, to which will be the countries creating most new GDP value in the coming 10 years. And you might find here some usual suspects like the US, Germany, Japan, but a lot of new players who were not on the map like even 20 years ago, surely 20 years ago, and even maybe 10 years ago. So this is the list of the countries that will be creating more growth, especially India, China, Indonesia, Turkey, Egypt. You have these countries here that are because of the growth, because of the population, because of the development of the technology, are catching up more. And this creates a new map for exporters who have to readapt, reshuffle their export list of countries. Where is it the best place for me as an exporter to explore new markets, and where is it the best place for me also maybe as an importer to source from? So this reshuffling, of course, creates a lot of data need for data, as you need to understand each country, but also, of course, each market segment. All the crisis here in the last month has been a lot about stop and go of the economies, but also of stop and go of market segments that are increasing very fast, and segments that are very, very down. And sometimes in the same industry, you might have a very active segment and a very dull segment of markets, and you really need to understand which at every time which are the segments that are most active, not just the countries. And next slide, please. Yeah, here you have also a second track that we mentioned at the beginning, which is the contradiction between more trade agreements being signed. Here, the one African market, the Asian or the regional agreement with China, the UK wanting to join the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Many of those movements still going on, of course, with Europe, the EU also, and Latin America. So these more trade agreements go along with more national preferences on the other side, and countries and country rulers tend to privilege and emphasize on national preferences. So there's a dimension of buying local, buying national, which is slightly different, but still this trend is very significant. And there are, of course, frictions between these two lines of force. And we've seen that in the past years. So this creates uncertainty whether as to the access to the marketplace. With my products, will I be able to send my products in a given country? And what will be the tariffs? What will be the non-tariff barriers? And all kind of stuff that can block, facilitate trade. So not only the markets and the demand are more volatile, but also the access to the market is slightly more volatile. It's been in the last years, and it's likely to be so in the coming years. And then we have two transformation, Nina. Next slide is the goal of zero carbon emission, which is progressively joining the agenda of international trade. Whether it's products, the way the product is produced, the way the product is shipped, the way the product is recycled, and other dimensions. So these are elements that are coming into consideration now from the buyers. The buyers, whether they are B2B or if they are B2C or consumer buyers, they tend to consider those criteria into the decision-making process. And so progressively, the exporters and the importers have to take this into consideration. How does this convey into data? It conveys mainly into regulatory data that allows or prevents or taxes carbon-heavy imports. Typically, that will be like probably the first move from the EU, the US, and probably also China to tax further, the carbon-heavy imports to their countries. On the other hand, do you have a fantastic projection, a fantastic capability of projection that has been increased over the last months and the last years, of course, which is using the digital channels to sell, the digital channels to engage, to discuss, to work together, whether it's for learning, it's for selling, it's for getting information, and of course a lot for promoting. This gives, of course, opportunities to exporters to go much faster, as they used to be, linked to their traveling, and now they can be, just linked to the agenda of their, Zoom meetings and e-commerce sales, and so things are getting pretty faster now for a number of industries where this kind of activities is relevant and possible. And so this is a very also opportunity rich for time for exporters. On the top bottom left, on the bottom left, sorry, we show where you see a boat, one of our platforms. We've seen on our trade platforms an increase of traffic over the last year, over the last 12 months, linked to, of course, COVID related research. So like plus 50%, plus 40%. So this kind of numbers, very significant increase. People were using more of digital channels to get information, but also were looking for more often for information because of the changes and volatility in the markets. So in a nutshell, I think we have this situation where the opportunities are very serious. The growth is here. Typically in the coming years, in many countries, there's going to be a very, very strong growth. Technology is going to accelerate growth. Typically, all this digital transformation that we've experienced will typically convey into productivity and growth in the coming years. And but on the other hand, it's more complex to catch it because it's more volatile, and it's not business as usual, like we used to say. A lot of people said, well, I always ship to the same place, or so why do I need to prepare, or to check shipment documents? Or why do I need to recalculate customs where it's always the same products sold always to the same place? Well, this is no longer really a practice that you can rely on. You cannot say anymore, well, it's always been like this, so it's going to be like this in the future. That doesn't work anymore. So there's a need for more information on the side of international trade-oriented companies. Nina, next slide. So, yeah, and here I'm going to let Nina go on with the presentation. But typically what Export has been putting together is a collection of data resources to help companies select the right markets, more precisely to help countries select the right countries, to have really an in-depth product-specific approach of country selection. Once a country is selected to be able to dig into this market, this segment of market, to understand the needs, the behavior, the competition, and resources to find counterparts, as this has also been a very proactive part of the activity over the last 12 months, as trade shows were off, and people were looking for counterparts on any digital channel available, and we have a lot of resources to help people find counterparts. And of course, a series of databases related to compliance, shipping documents, import controls, and custom duties, and other tax. Nina, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Etienne. Yes, at this point, I want to take you through and transition from the concepts Etienne was explaining to us as what is changing, why is it in this post-COVID new scenario that we're in and situation, how can we help these importers and exporters find new opportunities, and what is out there? We know that we need to change, we know that things are changing, so what is out there? So as Etienne was explaining, we do provide APIs and we do provide trade data specifically to meet this need. And so I'm going to break them down into 4 modules, more or less, as he introduced us to, about how we can do this. And so the first module that I'm going to take you through is select the best markets to trade. And it's broken down into 2 specific APIs. The first is best markets to trade with. What is that? That's basically an API that helps you identify, well, if I'm going to be exporting or importing coffee, where's the best market I should go to? So it's just basically a tool to help, as an importer exporter could be overwhelmed with data and overwhelmed with where to go to find where I should start to import or export. What if there was an API to say, well, if I just go and I say, if there was a resource rather, just to go and say, well, I have, as I say, I export coffee, what are the best markets for me to go to? So then we go and we calculate based on import data, based on various pieces of data, where the best market for this importer exporter to start looking at. What are maybe the top 5 countries they should consider? And then to follow up in that, we also provide doing business guides, which are more or less country profiles that are broken up into various sections to help a business that's involved. They're looking to go international into what they might need to know. So for example, what is the trade profile of this country? What is the top products or services that they import or export? What are the business implications of doing business in this country? What are some of the tax and legal ramifications? For example, how can I operate? What are the business practices in this country? How can I, if I need to move or open up an office in this particular place, how would I do so? So it's just all in these doing business guides are basically in-house written and produced and updated by us. So it's one of the unique value propositions we offer in the several APIs that I'm going to take you through. So that, like I said, that APE section or that module of API is really to help an importer exporter say, where is the best market for me to go to? The second piece and the second piece in their journey or step in their journey that we see is how can they collect the market information that they need in order to go forward? So that's where we look at the import-export flows. So what is the import-export? For example, if I want to export coffee from Canada to France, what are some of the, what is the values that's been over the years? So here through the export-import flows, you can look at how much coffee France was importing, for example, or onions, they were importing over the last 3-4 years. So you can see what the growth has been, if there's potential growth for you, and so forth. The second API that we look at in this collect market information module is what are some market insights? And what it basically is what it's market reports that we collect and we aggregate internally and we distribute through our market insight section. So what is the insight I can gain into perhaps the agricultural industry, specifically in Spain right now, or the farming industry, or what are some of the insights I can gain? So it's just a various amount of over 25,000 market reports found under market insight. The third category, and I think one that many importers and exporters, as Etienne said, they're most interested in, is how can I find counterparts? How can I find contacts in these countries? So some of the data that we provide in this section is going to be around tenders. What are the tenders I can find maybe for my logistics service or for my fiber optic service? So what are the tenders? So we aggregate all of the tenders into one single API. Then we look at trade shows. These are being updated, of course, to be virtual trade shows now. So what are the trade shows I should be considering and being involved in, where I will find contacts? Then we look at counterparts. So this is actually a unique database we have of over 1 million companies that are importing and exporting. We aggregate this data from various custom officials worldwide. And it's a unique source for those importers, exporters to be able to find specific contacts for a coffee importer or a onion importer or exporter in certain countries. So it's all broken down by industry specific. In fact, all the APIs are. Then there's the directories. So we have aggregated over 4,500 professional organizations that you can look up, again, via industry specific. Also marketplaces, same thing. You can be able to look up industry specific marketplaces, perhaps on the food industry or agriculture or business services. And then there's also the financial reports. So what if the user would like to have more information on the credit ratings or the financial reports of a company that they found. The fourth module that we look at and that we see that importers, exporters would find useful in their international trade journey is going to be around compliance and duties and custom duties. So we break that down into more or less 6 APIs or databases that we offer. The first one is shipping docs. So what are all of the shipping docs that a user could, that a company could be using to be exporting their coffee or exporting their onions to a specific country? So you can be able to look up what those shipping documents are going to be required for exporting or importing based on the product and country. Also the import-export controls. So if there's any import or export controls for a various country, let's just say you're going to be importing to the UAE, maybe there's a specific control on the amount and the value of the product that you're going to be importing or exporting. So you can look up all the import or export controls required. You can find blacklisted counterparts. So what if a particular country, what if a particular counterpart is blacklisted? You want to be able to know that information before, so you can look them up in our database to see if they've been blacklisted. Then you can take a look at the custom duties calculators. So what are the custom duties required for me to import or export that particular product? And then finally, to find the local classification codes to be able to perform these actions. So what are the local classification code, perhaps for tea in India versus the classification for it in the UK? Same thing with the HS classification. So these are all tools and guides that you can use through the local classification and HS classification to perform these other APIs. So this is the package in the compliance section that we offer. And then just also in addition, we also provide a few support resources in this. So perhaps you want to know, what are all the trade agreements offered for a particular country? What is the product classification mapping or the trade geographies? So these are just different support resources that we also offer on top of, but more or less are much more popular are those four modules that I took you through to say, how can I find, what's the best market for me to enter? How can I find the information that I need? How are the counterparts I can find? And then how can I execute that trade? So as we finish up. And that being said, I'm going to hand it back over to Etienne to take us through the last and final section of what is it that we do here at Export Enterprises, and how can these APIs and trade data help you and help your international oriented companies.
Thanks, Nina. A few quick words about how to implement it and what do we offer here. Well, first we offer, of course, the whole content updating. That's of course critical part of what we provide. It's constant updating. Sometimes even it's a daily based updating, like for the trade compliance resources. Those APIs are, and we'll see how in the next slides, are plugged into your web environment or connected into your web with your web environment, and this is done under a certain level of security, so that these communications between your platforms and our APIs are secured. We track and track the traffic going along between the platform and the API, so with the transparent reports, so that everybody's aware of what kind of queries and in terms of numbers and in terms of topics are being performed. And we support your implementation of the APIs in your platform. We provide all the support to guarantee success. Next slide, please. The first step is the engineering of the connection. First, of course, so we have a series of tools that allow your IT team to understand and test the API, so that they can build up the front end. Because in the API system, the bank or the clients or the platform consuming the API is going to build the front end, a page that is going to query the API. So if it's a market reports API, then you're going to build a page that's going to query an industry and a country, and the API will send you all the market reports. This is how it works, high level. That there are actually two options to building the front end. One is building it from scratch. So inside your platform, you create a new HTML page and you program the query, and you get the results, and you program how to display the results on the page, like any HTML page of your website, but just with the content provided by a third-party resource, which is the API. Or we can provide you with what we call JavaScript widgets that you can just embed into your HTML page, and then display automatically the UI who's going to query the API. So this is a time saver in terms of front-end development, very significant time saver. So two technologies to integrate the API into your platform. And once again, this mutual TLS, so it's a double certificate. It's installed on both servers, the server of your platform and ours. All the communication go through what we call an API gateway. I'm not going to elaborate precisely here, but it's a gateway that runs all the rights and controls all the access rights for all the queries. The queries are not performed by the users. The queries are performed by your server. So the users are exchanging with your server on your platform, and your server is doing the request to our APIs. We don't talk to your users. The computer of the user doesn't talk to our APIs. The computer of your users talk to your servers and goes to APIs. It's relatively quick to run. If a matter of weeks. Of course, it depends on the longest part of the game is to develop the front end. But for a simple API like market reports, it can be just a matter of weeks. Next one. So this is a high-level illustration of the way it works. You have your own platform where you decide of the user interface. You run your users. They log in onto your platform. They log off. You track them, and you build this front-end page consuming market reports, for instance. And the query goes through any EE's API gateway, and once it's been cleared, it goes to EE's API. All of this being hosted by Expert Entreprise. The content is updated there, and the APIs are maintained there. The speed of answer is always below 1 second. It's expressed in terms of milliseconds, more precisely. So it doesn't kill the speed of the front end page of your platform. And next slide. Yeah. So as a wrap up, so the benefits of APIs is one that is relatively plug and play. I mean, it's not completely plug and play, but it's the closest we have at the moment to plug and play. So you decide to get an API, you develop your front end, or you get the JavaScript widget, and then you consume the API. So you extend your UX, the experience of your website, the resources of your website, really very, very quickly. The user management remains in your hands. we never see the user. We don't even know who is using your platform. We don't care. We just receive queries, anonymous queries. Somebody is looking for market reports about cosmetics in India, and we just send them back, and that's it. So it's a very significant benefit in terms of user data management because we don't have any. So it's as simple as this. Your design. So if you want to make fancy UI and notification and alerts, you can deploy. You can be proactive. You don't have to go strictly for the classic query and answer UI where you have a database, you search per country and so on. You can enter you can store the industry of the user, and whenever there's a new market report, you push it up to a certain area of the screen. So there's many UIs that the platform runner can design that will consume the APIs, but are completely designed on custom based on the experience that you want to propose to the users. And last point is the flexibility of the developments, meaning that you don't have to go for all 20-something APIs. You can do 5 and then see what happens with this new section. So you go for a check compliance section, a new check compliance section, see if it has success, and if it does, then you go for another section and so on. So you can typically do it progressively. And this is it. This is what we wanted to convey to you. I think we made it exactly in 30 minutes. And now we're open to any question that you may have concerning the topics that we've been discussing, content and APIs. Thank you very much. I don't know, Nina, if there is no question, then maybe we should.
No, I think I think if anyone has any more questions, I've emailed everyone so they can write me independently and write me directly about any direct questions they have, and I'll be sending the presentation to everybody following the webinar.
Okay, thank you everybody, and have a great day or afternoon or even evening. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.